Chapter 1. Kate Phillips carefully navigated her Miata through the torrential downpour as she approached Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It had been a long, difficult drive from Nashville in the storm. What was she thinking, coming here on a night like this? If not for the mysterious business card with the newspaper clipping about the investigation into her uncle's recent death, she'd be safe at home right now. She didn't even know her uncle, had never met him. But a month ago, out of the blue, he sent her a letter to apologize for not being there when she needed him. He said he wanted to make it up to her. She'd never replied. Why should she? The man hadn't shown one iota of concern for her or her mother, not even when her mother passed away 14 years ago. Then suddenly, he has a change of heart? Still, Owen Bentley was her mother's only brother and the last link to her mother's family. That alone had persuaded Kate to come in search of answers about his death and make the impromptu trip that Sunday afternoon. Mac, her supervisor with the Marshal Service, had been urging her to take time off anyway. When she'd called him at home yesterday, right after she discovered the business card and clipping in her mail, he approved her 2-week vacation request over the phone. But with church, packing, and making last-minute arrangements, she'd left later today than she had wanted. Now, it was after dark, and the storm had become more threatening. She peered ahead into the gloom, not wanting to miss her turn. Lightning flashed, exposing a hooded man in the road. Images of his bandaged face and hand and his wild eyes instantly burned into Kate's memory like a scene from a horror movie. She jerked the steering wheel to avoid him and lost control. Her car skidded across the wet pavement, careening down a slope toward the woods. A large tree loomed ahead, but she was going too fast to stop. Turning the steering wheel and stomping the brakes, she made a frantic attempt to avert disaster. The crash of metal and glass was the last thing she heard before the airbag punched her in the face and chest. The tapping of rain roused her to her senses. Where was she? The collision had scrambled her brain. She raised her head and pushed the deployed airbag away. Battered and sore, she gingerly touched her face, tracing the liquid on her cheek. Was it blood? After flipping on the dome light, she touched her cheek again. Moisture, not blood. Phew! Kate glimpsed something big and dark to her right. Turning to see, she gasped at the massive tree occupying the space next to her. The sudden need for air compelled her to touch the button on her left. The window wouldn't open. She tried the door. Jammed. Lord, if this is a nightmare, please wake me up. A bright beam appeared in the distance, a man holding a flashlight. When he reached her car, he shouted through the glass, "Are you okay?" She nodded. "I'll be right back," he said, then disappeared. Alone in her confusion, Kate relied on her instincts. Shifting toward her door, she attempted to shove it open, but the ache in her left shoulder forced her to stop. The light returned. When she saw the man carrying a crowbar, she exhaled in relief. "I'll pry it open," he shouted. While he inserted the crowbar into the crack and pressed against it, using his body for leverage, she pushed from inside. The door gave way, and Kate lurched to the left. Her seatbelt prevented her from falling out, but aggravated her shoulder injury. Slowly, she righted herself and spotted the man bent over, fumbling through the wet autumn leaves. She stared at him as she massaged the top of her left arm. "What are you doing?" "I dropped my flashlight." He scooped it up and wiped his muddy palm on his soaked jeans as he came toward her, illuminating the car. "How far away is the Cades Cove campground?" she asked. "Camping tonight in this rain?" He frowned at the dark, stormy sky. "You'd be better off staying at the motel in Tyler's Glen. It's only 4 miles from here." He reached for her hand, and she jerked away. "It's all right." His voice was calm and reassuring. "I'm an EMT. I only want to check your pulse." "Oh." Allowing him to proceed, she watched him with a wary eye as he placed 2 fingers on her wrist. Not sure if she should thank him or draw her gun from her backpack. Where was her backpack anyway? She turned stiffly and looked over her shoulder. It lay pressed between the tree and the console. "Your pulse is fine." When he'd released her hand, he pointed to the passenger side of her Miata. "I wish I could say the same for your car. You're lucky to be alive." Reaching for her pack, she groaned in pain.